particularly in ethics and in practical ethics, philosophers often ask themselves whether what they do matters, why it matters. Does it matter to the world outside philosophy? Does it matter to the world of philosophy? One thing I think philosophers could remember, helpfully, if they're feeling a bit gloomy about the influence that they're having, is what Derek said about imperceptible harms. Because it could be that you have imperceptible benefits on the world which you can't identify. I think it's also useful to look at history. I mean, it's somebody who says, oh, philosophy is an ivory tower discipline, it never makes any difference, is clearly talking rubbish. There are many obvious counterexamples, but one very clear one is Marx. The idea that Marx's philosophy made no difference to the world is insane. But it's equally insane, I think, applied to Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and many other great philosophers. I think it could be argued that it's now in some ways harder for philosophers to affect the world than it was, for example, in the 19th century when John Stuart Mill was listened to as a public intellectual. He was very famous. He became an MP, and utilitarian thinking improved the lives of people in the UK hugely. It wasn't so good at improving the lives of people in the British Empire, but nevertheless, Mill did his bit. That's not so easy now because most philosophy is carried out within universities, and it's become much more specialised. So there are philosophers who work in ethics, but then there are philosophers who work in meta-ethics rather than ethical theory, or rather than practical ethics. So philosophers talk less to one another, even within their subdisciplines, than they did. So that means the discussions have become that much more specialised, and it's harder for people outside those discussions to understand them, and perhaps it becomes harder for the philosophers engaged in the discussions to be motivated to convey their ideas to people outside, partly because it's hard to do, but also because they kind of know that often they're not going to be able to persuade those people outside of the truth of their own views. I think there are certain issues, and Derek really uncovered many of them, where the ideas themselves, like the non-identity problem, and the question of what kind of population should we have, and equality itself would be another one. Those sorts of issues are of central political significance, and all I hope is that somehow Derek's work filters more into the world than it already has done.